All right, I think that's it. All right, awesome. So welcome, everyone. Hope everyone had a good evening. Welcome to the first ever Volunteer Town Hall. We know there are a lot of changes and unknowns that are as we enter this kind of new school year. So we wanted to host this town hall to get you the information that you need to guide our student members. This past summer, the management team and staff have been working on multiple task forces to develop resources and programming needed to help our chapters. In addition, Steve and I have been collaborating with a student advisory board of 16 members across this organization to help define and refine some of our offerings as an organization, especially as we enter this new school year with the pandemic. So before we get started, I wanted to introduce our presenters for tonight. So first, I'd like to introduce Jackie Canarte, our fraternity EVP, Heather Robnett, fraternity manager of communication, and Lisa Goldstein, our fraternity manager of operations. So they will be helping present some of the various topics, resources, and programming that the fraternity has to offer tonight. So I want to thank everyone for doing that. In addition, in their ongoing support of our volunteers, with us tonight are members from the AKPsi staff. So who I've seen so far, we had Steve Hartman, the AKPsi CEO, Brian Parker, our Chief Operating Officer, Jason Pierce, our Director of Education, Melinda Rosenthal, our Director of Member Services, Student Services, and did I miss anyone else from staff? And obviously, you know, Coral Peterson and Amber Hambach are awesome resource coordinators that have been helping us and our volunteers. With that being said, I'd like to hand this over to Steve to give us an overview of our operations plan for 2020 and 2021.
Thanks, Thomas. If you've been on several of these different calls we've had over the summer, you may have noticed that my hair has gotten a lot longer since March, where back when I was getting haircuts, the picture is a little more neat presentation of me. So please excuse my disheveled look this evening, but it's a consistently disheveled look. So I got that going for me. Thank you to Jackie, Heather, and Elisa for putting this together, and along with Thomas for his leadership and really throughout the whole summer as we get prepared for the fall. And also, too, I see several familiar faces and names tonight attending, so I want to thank you for, again, your commitment and your time and energy and your help and care for each other, for fellow volunteers, for staff members, and certainly for students and chapter officers. A couple of things just to kind of a broad overview here is that if you did go through the operations plan that Thomas and I wrote up and sent out last weekend, the weekend before last, you'll see several of the different things that are the highlights of that memo are right here on this slide. The one thing I want to point out, and again, it really is a hats off, if you will, to those of you on the call tonight who have worked so hard in the organization, again, staff and volunteers, to put the organization in a position where we can, in fact, take on something like COVID-19 and be able to weather it, get through it, come out stronger, and be more creative and empowering throughout the whole situation. I say that because we're going to run actually it's about an $800,000 deficit, a budget deficit this year. And that's even with including about $1 million in expenses that are cut from the budget compared to fiscal year 19. Fiscal year 19 being the comparable year because it's an off-convention year, in the same way that fiscal year 21 is an off-convention year. So we're going to have to do things that we normally would do with significantly less expenses, and even then still run a deficit. The main reason is that we'll be losing, we believe, quite a bit of revenue generally from membership. If you've tracked this, and I'm sure most of you have, we see school after school after school either move to online 100% virtual education, or just simply closing the campus and saying we're not going to bring students to campus at all. Again, every day there's a new announcement because of new outbreaks. So we're just going to have to keep adjusting. Having said that, picking up on one of Thomas's messages is that I am very encouraged by the work that we were able to do, the management team and the staff together to put together some resources that hopefully are valuable to the students, to student officers particularly, as they do their best to keep their chapters intact, their members engaged, and to provide, again, a meaningful Alpha Kappa Psi experience, even in a virtual space or some kind of a hybrid space, depending upon the campus. Okay, some of the major highlights here is that we did reduce student member dues by 10% from $60 to $54. We did reduce insurance from $30 to $27. And the convention savings plan, which was scheduled to be increased by $100, is just going to remain the same at $250 like it was last year. In addition to that, on the insurance side, we know there's going to be a couple of things. One thing Melinda brought up to me today is that there are going to be situations where certain chapters may come back with markedly fewer members than they did in the spring. So normally the insurance billing is driven off the roster for the end of spring. We are required to report our membership to the insurance company, and they develop their premium based upon the number we report. So one of the things we're going to have to work through with some chapters, and I don't have a specific formula for you this evening, but one of the things that we will need to do in those situations where chapters are coming back with, say, half the membership or a third of the membership that they had in the spring, because the insurance billing was driven off the spring roster, they're going to receive an insurance bill that's probably way higher than reflecting like the actual membership in the chapter. If that's the situation, we can work with them on getting that number down, getting the insurance premium down to a reasonable number. We just have to kind of look at that in the aggregate again, because we're on the hook for insurance premiums. Another question around insurance that's come up a couple times is that around the risk. If in fact we're not having events, if in fact we've limited legal liability relative to alcohol and things like that without having students congregating, then why would insurance be as expensive? A couple reasons for that. The first one is there's other liability that's involved besides like liquor liability or other things that are around congregations or parties. We've had quite a few incidents, and in some cases we've had attorneys involved with cyberbullying, with other things that happen online that provide some sense of liability in the organization's behalf. In fact, last year I think one of the biggest incidents we had was about a cyberbullying case, or a bullying case, I'll just say, that included some online bullying mostly, and restraining orders and the whole thing that we had to get involved with. So those things still occur. They are still occurring, and they still need to be investigated, adjudicated. Secondly, there are other things besides legal liability that we also are continuing to insure against, or I should say insure, such as embezzlement, crime, other crimes, directors and officers insurance. There's several other different policies that are also part of that whole premium structure. I don't know, Brian can probably answer more specifically, but I think there's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 10 or 12 different policies that we have to maintain generally as an organization. It's not just about the liability. The liability is the big one, because that's the one that if it is going to get, if we are going to have a major case, it's going to be one of those. But nevertheless, we still have to maintain insurance for the organization across that. The other thing to point out is that it also protects volunteers regardless. So that's important that we provide as an organization liability protection for all volunteers in their capacity, each of their capacities or whatever their role is. So even though it may seem like it's a less risky world or a less risky environment without physical congregation or meetings or parties, it's not enough that makes a difference as far as relative to costs and premiums. Okay, so a couple of things just to kind of keep in mind from an operational perspective that are outlined here. And again, the link here will take you to the whole letter if you haven't seen it already. Minimum expectations, what you would be used to thinking as minimum standards. Again, just trying to think through the main thing is trying to understand that the students are dealing with a whole host of stressful circumstances. So Alpha Kappa Psi, we're lucky if we're the 4th or 5th or 10th thing that's on their mind going into this academic year. And so we are trying to basically create or to convey the culture that we're really just trying to provide the whole organization, like big AKPsi, what some people might say, national, even though we're not really, there isn't really a national, but when you think about our whole entity, you and I together, volunteer staff together, what are we trying to do? We're really trying to provide the students with support, either as an individual student or as a student chapter officer, so they can figure out how they can be successful in whatever capacity they choose to engage with Alpha Kappa Psi. So for instance, a lot of what's outlined in the Brotherhood Unbounded program is designed to take some of the pressure off of the executive committee, the VP admin, or whoever would be doing programming, and then we would provide them with the pieces in Brotherhood Unbounded to help them build their program for the year, if in fact they're looking for that help and guidance, given everything else that's going on and they're trying to manage. The second thing is that you've probably already seen or you've seen partially the virtual chapter operations guide. It's a fantastic resource, and again, I thank several people on this call for contributing to that and making sure we get it out there so that it's a valuable resource to work in this world. I know that we're not alone as an organization for trying to provide these sorts of things. In fact, I had someone ironically forward a similar manual from another organization to me this evening. It wasn't nearly what we're providing for guidance and resources. So I'm really, really proud of what we've been able to put together, and I hope that it's a helpful resource to the student chapter officers. So that whole manual is designed to assist as well. And then a couple other things just around the kind of the value question. We won't have PBLI because of COVID-19. I'll just throw out a number. There's a 5% chance we could have a face-to-face PBLI, and that would be in the February timeframe, probably in the Chicago hotel. But I wouldn't count on it. It's just the whole situation is so volatile. And the main thing is we don't want to be, I think we all want to be creative. We all want to do things that are innovative and interesting, but we're not going to push the line relative to the safety of students and members and volunteers and staff when it comes to COVID-19. So until there's we feel more confident around the environment, we're not going to try to do any face-to-face events like that. So I would say maybe it's a 5% chance, but I wouldn't say it's very strong. We will do, however, a series of events that are virtual. When again, if you sort of think about what we'll be able to do, because we won't have to juggle geography, we'll be able to utilize to kind of pool resources to develop some programs online that otherwise we maybe couldn't have done in 4 different locations around the country. And our friends from the United Kingdom, the alumni group over there, and Thomas and Jason have been working to try to combine our efforts in putting together the Institute for Business Leadership as an online conference that if a student is going to pay dues for this fall, their registration to that event will be free or comped as part of the membership dues, even though we will have some expenses, obviously, for speakers, for technology, for the event. But again, we're going to roll into the due structure as a value to membership for this term. So in closing, I just want to mention that, again, we are on sound financial footing because of what your dedication and effort has been in the years past. We do have the ability to dip into some of our reserve funds just for these very situations. And that is because, frankly, of the work that you've done over the years and the staff, the volunteers, everyone that's done over the years to put the organization on sound footing. For that, I thank you. That's why we can run a budget deficit of $800,000 this year and still be able to provide the organization with the resources to make things work this year, and hopefully provide the students with the experience that's appropriate for them given the circumstances. Thomas, I don't have a ton of other things to cover, but I'll stay on the line. I think, and Brian, We'll be around if there are specific questions that folks have about scenarios around payment plans or other kind of chapter related things that will come up.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So Steve hit it a little bit on about the chapter minimum expectations. There's a change in what we're doing, so I'd like to hand that over to Jackie to kind of go over the change that we are looking to implement for this year.
Hey everyone, thank you for logging on this evening or early afternoon or late night for wherever you're logging in from. So thank you for being with us. Like Thomas just mentioned, we're going to go over some minimum expectations for this year. I know in the past we've been really used to minimum standards and really sticking to them, and like what happens if a chapter does not achieve those goals. This year with everything going on and the environment that they're in, when we got together as a management team and Heritage Center staff, it's how do we become more flexible during this time of ambiguity that all of our chapters and that us were going through. And some of the things that we discussed, specifically our student services team, Melinda and Alec getting together, then with Steve and Thomas, is what are the three main things that we really want to make sure that we focus on this year, which is recruitment, because of course that's how we stay alive. That is the blood flow that comes in through AKPsi. Once we recruit, the retention of it. So how do we retain these individuals? And once they are retained, how do we keep them engaged? And that's how we came up with the 6 minimum expectations for this year. So under recruit, we do have completing 2 recruitment events in the academic year, and one must fall in the first term of the year. So if you're a quarter school or a semester school, just making sure that one of those recruitments does fall in the first half or the first term of the year. From there, of course, is following the Bridge to Brotherhood program with any potential new member. You will be working with that with your chapter advisors, your regional directors, your resource coordinators, just to make sure that everything is turned in and that we're still following our Bridge to Brotherhood program, especially if it's going virtual. When we go into engagements, we have completing virtual chapter events with 50% of members in attendance per term. I know some of the questions that come up is like, well, how do we track that? How do we know if 50% of the members are in attendance for chapter events? So through the MyAKPsi community portal, I checked with Jason earlier to make sure I can tell you guys this. They will be able to go in and create events for the chapter. Just like you registered today for this event, the chapter will create the event. Their members, their brothers will then go in, register for the event. Once the event takes place and they have signed in, that tracks with the attendance for the event. So that is currently being worked on and tested. We've had some positive, we've tested it once or twice positively. We're working out 1 or 2 kinks with certain individuals' logins, but that is one way they can do it. If it's not working out, please make sure that you partner with your resource coordinator so that we can get that documented properly. Number 4 is have 10% of chapter members or at a minimum of 3 if the chapter has less than 30 members in attendance at fraternity-wide events. As you heard Steve mention earlier today, PBLI going virtual, so there's a lot of different opportunities for our chapter brothers to be able to participate in fraternity-wide events. If it's keynote speakers, if it's virtual programming, if it's town halls, if it's alumni orientations, all the different virtual events that we are putting together for them, as long as 10% of the Brotherhood is part of it, they have met that minimum expectation. We go into retain, have at least 4 of the 7 core chapter officers complete their learning plans. It is the 7 core chapter officers mentioned in our bylaws, which is our secretary, treasurer, MOR, VPM, VPAR, VP admin, and president. Those are the 7, or what is equivalent to those 7. I know some chapters utilize different names, if it's EVP for VP admin or VP of finance for treasurer, but as long as 4 out of the 7 core complete their learning plans. And last, meet your chapter success plan year-end chapter size goal. We want to make sure that that's really a conversation between the chapter, their chapter advisors, section directors, regional directors when it comes to their year-end chapter size goal, and that those conversations are ongoing on where they need support, where they need help. When it comes to minimum expectations, what we really want the volunteers to hone in on this year more than ever is that conversation with that chapter, asking the right questions. Where do they need the resources? Where the support. The three main questions that I always find to be helpful in any conversation that I go into when it comes to leading others for their growth, for their help, is simple things like, hey, what's working? What are you guys doing well that when it comes to recruitment, retaining, or engagement, that's working? What's going well? From there, where are they getting stuck? Just a simple question of where are you getting stuck could open up that dialogue to see what resource or what help you could provide for them. And then last, letting it go back to them. What might they do differently? So once they've uncovered what's working, where are they getting stuck, what might they do differently to help move through the situation? So just making sure that you really stay close to your chapters this year and having those conversations around recruitment, retention, and engagement. With that, I turn it back to you, Thomas.
Thank you, Jackie. So again, with the minimum expectations and the minimum standards, like Jackie said, there's still a lot of uncertainties, and we can't put standards around unknowns, especially for this year. So as we kind of redesign the language, these are just kind of the expectations we want our chapters to kind of focus on as goals. So with these things, we talked about virtual recruitment, virtual pledging. How are you supposed to do that? So with that being said, I'm going to hand this over to Lisa to go over the available AKPsi virtual resources that were developed over this year over the summer with the MT and the staff.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, Jackie. So as they mentioned, next we're going to cover those resources that are geared both toward assisting the student chapters as well as volunteers like yourselves for the current school year. So the first one that we have up here on the screen is the Virtual Chapter Operations Guide. So this is really your one-stop shop for tools and resources available for the semester and for operating virtually. The document lives within the knowledge base section of the MyAKPsi community, which Heather is going to be walking us through next. So fear not if you don't know where to find that quite yet. It was also sent out via email from Steve on an email dated August 14th. So you can find that in your inbox, spam, deleted folder, wherever it may have ended up. And it's also posted in the various community groups, including the AKPsi volunteer group. As always, any of these guides can be found by using the search function in the community. As pictured here, I'm going to highlight the table of contents, which for the Virtual Chapter Operations Guide includes fraternity-wide information. So that includes the fraternity's outlook on coronavirus, minimum standards, as Jackie just covered, communication and events, as well as chapter-specific information. So that's how-tos on hosting chapter meetings, financial planning, and recruitment and the bridge to brotherhood. Many of the resources in this document are links to other documents and sections within the MyAKPsi community. This includes other guides, video recordings from officer town halls, e-learnings and webinars, and chapter programming examples. One of the great perks of this guide living in the MyAKPsi community is that it's actually going to be updated weekly by the student services team. So it will be a living and breathing document for the semester. And then next, we have the guide to virtual recruitment. So this guide also lives in the knowledge base and is linked within the Virtual Chapter Operations Guide. So at the very least, if you can find the Virtual Chapter Operations Guide, you can kind of find any of the rest of these documents. As the title explains, it should be used by student chapters and volunteers for the steps involved with recruitment, including finding prospects, selling the organization, and selecting pledges. The guide is recommended to be used in conjunction with other resources that are available in the Virtual Chapter Operations Guide. For example, there are resources with a great example from the Row chapter that had a successful Spring 2020 virtual recruitment. And finally, as far as guides go, is the Guide to Virtual Bridge to Brotherhood. Again, this guide lives in the knowledge base, in the MyAKPsi community, and is linked in the Virtual Chapter Operations Guide. It's broken down into planning the process and conducting the process. Again, it contains a lot of links to other resources, including the Bridge to Brotherhood Facilitator Guide, module-specific recommendations, and links and details for virtual elective ideas. Another resource that lives in the MyAKPsi community is the calendar of due dates. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, and you can probably all repeat this with me, but it's found in the knowledge base section and linked in the virtual chapter operations guide. The calendar is actually a continuation of a document from the last academic year and breaks down month by month due dates by responsible party. So it's all color coded, makes it pretty easy for you and the students to follow. And finally, we have the chapter advisor checklist. So this is an email that's sent out monthly by Thomas. The last email was sent on August 3rd, and the September email will be coming out shortly. It details the basic tasks to help your chapter officers in their roles and includes due dates and links to additional resources. Additionally, starting in the September email, it will include key tasks that will be in the chapter advisor learn track in the MyAKPsi community. So please use this email as a reminder to check that roadmap again in the community. So I know that was a quick and brief introduction. Again, please go back at your leisure to read through. None of the documents are particularly long and contain a lot of just great information for you to have on hand for the semester and for the year. Now that I've told you that everything you could ever need is in the MyAKPsi community, I'll turn it back to Thomas if there's any additional thoughts, and then Heather will walk you through the site.
Awesome, thank you, Lisa. So yes, MyAKPsi community, you heard it 100 different times, different ways. The redesign was actually launched this past May through all the chaos that was COVID. So it's been redesigned to better provide the resources and navigation to our members. So hand it over to Heather to do a walkthrough of kind of the touch points that we need as volunteers. Heather?
Thanks, Thomas. So real quick, I'm going to go ahead and switch over. So I'm going to share. Okay, so can you give me a thumbs up? Can you see the website? Okay, thank you. Awesome. So when you log into the community, this will be the page you end up on. So there's a lot of great resources down here that the chapters are able to use, as well as this is an intro video from Thomas and Steve. But really, we're going to get into the heart of some of these tabs. So first and foremost, I do want to start with the Volunteer Central tab. So for those of you who probably have gotten an email recently about recommitting for your position, this is how you do that. So you'll log into the community, come to Volunteer Central. As you can see with my many positions, you'll see the recommitting, not recommitting button. So these used to be clickable, I guess, and I've already went in and had submitted mine. But basically all you'll need to do is come in, hit the recommitting button. And what that does is it'll then say that, yes, I want to continue for another year in my position. So this is due August 31st. So here within the next few days, if you can go in, if you haven't already, hit the recommitting button just to let all of us on the management team know that you do want to continue in your position. Ideally, I believe it goes out every June moving forward. So every year you will then begin to submit that you are going to be recommitting. This just allows us to keep that roster up to date. It also gives you a chance to, if life happens and you're looking to maybe take a break from volunteering, this gives you that opportunity to step away over the summer, give your regional director a chance to find other volunteers to fill in for your role. The other thing I want to mention on here is it's a newer feature. It's called the Volunteer Search Pool. So this is an awesome new feature that chapters will be able to use. So for example, if they're looking for someone to come talk to the chapter from, say, the healthcare industry, and maybe they live in Washington, or wherever else it may be. Obviously right now being virtual, location doesn't necessarily matter as much. But this will be something they'll be able to come in. There's a lot of volunteers out there that would love to help. So that said, if you would like to also add yourself to the interest list, all you have to do is come up the general interest form. You're able to fill that in. So it's just some basic information about you. And then down here, sorry, I was clicking on it earlier. So if you're wanting to help specifically with the chapters, you're able to select chapter level volunteers. And then there's various different options. You can be a panelist, a speaker, a mentor, host a company tour, maybe in the future, things like that. And then it'll also ask you how far you're willing to travel, you know, for especially if you're wanting to do a speaker type event or anything like that. But then this would add you to the pool down below. And then it will give chapters a pool that they're able to reach out to also help grow their alumni network past only their chapter. So it does give them that opportunity. So with that, we're going to now move to the next tab over, which is going to be the knowledge base. So this is the one Alyssa kept talking about. So you can find all kinds of information in here. There's several different, I guess, headers you can go through depending on what you're looking for. The one thing I do want to note is for a lot of the content she was sharing, especially around the virtual stuff, those are going to be within some of these different tabs or these different headers depending on what you're looking for. But I have found the easiest is to actually type in virtual up here and they'll all appear. So that's kind of the quick go-to for me. So, you know, from here you easily get to the chapter operations guide and get to what you're looking for. So with that, we're going to move over to the events tab real quick. I feel like most of you are probably familiar with it since you obviously registered to get here tonight. And then as mentioned earlier, they have been testing out the event button. So this is still, I believe, in the works, but getting there. So very excited for that. With that, we're going to then move over to the My Groups tab. So under MyAKPsi, go into My Groups. So yours will probably look a little bit different than mine, just because of the ones I have, but there should be several listed on the right side that you are able to join. The one that was mentioned earlier is the AKPsi Volunteer Group. So this is going to be where a lot of those resources will be shared. This is also a great place if you want to communicate with other volunteers, especially other chapter advisors. If you're a chapter advisor and want to just hear what their chapter's been doing, things like that. But there are another group with the student members and volunteers to also note. So this is a group of all of us plus the students. So it's just a great place to interact and also see what some of the students are doing and things like that that they're able to share. And last but not least, and my most favorite now, is the under MyAKPsi My Journey. So there are several different options in here. Let me switch back to top view. So the one thing to note, so you'll see a lot of the core 7 positions listed here. So these are going to be a part of the chapter achievement pathway. So this is going to be for the officers, whether they're new or continuing on in their role right now. I highly recommend you encourage them to check these out. These are a great resource to help them with their role, and highly encourage that. And then also you'll notice the Bridge to Brotherhood is in here, which is what the new members will be going through, or the potential new members will be going through. Then also the Bridge to Brotherhood training. So if you are less familiar with the program, I'd highly recommend checking that training out. It just gives you a better understanding of what they're going through without having to read the 100+ page document. So it's just a little bit easier to comprehend with that. And then we also have Brotherhood Unbounded, which is going to be some of the courses such as Active Learner, Change Agent, Exploring Your Passion. Over the summer, I had completed these, or I guess it was in the spring. But these are really a great tool, not only for current members, collegiate members, as well as alumni members. It's something that what I like to tell some of the chapter advisors I've been working with is this is a chance, for the chapter to say, we're able to provide additional professional development. So this is something once they become a brother, they can still continue to learn and grow as a member, and it's something else the chapter is able to offer. It's also great if you guys would like to go through it as well. And being able to go through it, I was able to actually learn quite a bit about myself. So yeah, definitely check those out. And then the most exciting part, these are not officially released yet, but there are roadmaps that will be coming out for the positions. So chapter advisor, section director, and regional director. So these, we've been testing these past few weeks. But essentially, the email that goes out to chapter advisors at the beginning of the month will have some of the tasks noted, but then this is going to tell you everything else. So for example, if we look at August, there's a lot of check-in activities, but it kind of prompts you on everything you need to be doing. So whether that's checking in on Bridge to Brotherhood, checking in with your officers, reviewing the recruitment plan, just being able to know, what you need to be doing, what you should be checking in on. It's a great tool, and I'm really looking forward to all the chapter advisors getting to use it. Whether you're an experienced volunteer, a new volunteer, very excited for this to be rolled out very soon. So with that, Thomas, I will pass it back to you. And let me switch my screen back over. Maybe. Oh, Thomas, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. So thank you for that, Heather. As you can see, there's a lot of resources have been developed that supports our volunteers. Heather touched base on this, is the learning plans. These are monthly check-ins for both CAs, RDs, and SDs that can be found in the My Journey. So if you need to know what needs to be done for this month, you can go into the MyAKPsi, go to August, and see the checklist that's available. Those are rolling out, I would say, in the next couple of days, I think. We're just finalizing some of the details, the finer feedback and details, but that'll be rolled out by the end of this week. All right, next. All right, so what's going on this school year? You've heard the name Brotherhood Unbounded at the end of March, April timeframe. The Brotherhood Unbounded was an initiative that was launched to help supplement some of the programming that our chapters were worried about when they were converting from in-person to virtual. So there was a lot of good traction. A lot of students were involved. A lot of alumni were involved in doing virtual sessions for our members during this time. So we are continuing the Brotherhood Unbounded brand through the school year. So what does that entail? So the Brotherhood Unbounded. So some of these are the kind of the product lists that we're looking to launch this year. There will be a marketing plan that will be launched in the next week or so with further details and kind of the roadmap of when we should be expecting these items. So we talked about this. The MyAKPsi mobile app has been officially launched, unofficially launched, I guess. It's now in the Apple or Google Play Store, so you can download that. That will give you the full MyAKPsi experience on your mobile phone. So that is now live, so go ahead and download that. In addition, the Berkman survey. So if you went to the Fraternity Advisory Conference this past January in Phoenix, we implemented, or with our groups, we did the Berkman survey. And that was a comprehensive tool that was utilized by executive search firms that kind of go into further details about your personality and how to work with individuals. So for example, one of the reports that it provides, this Berkman survey provides hundreds of different reports. And one of the reports that we looked at was between the MT and the staff were stress behaviors. So what things, everyone works differently. And if something doesn't work correct how we want it, you get stressed out. So how do we identify that? For example, the majority of the staff and the management team are by nature very administrative, meaning we like process. But when you have a team of 30, 40 people that have their own process, there's going to be conflict and stress. So that actually shared with us on how we will work better together as a team and as an organization to identify what triggers us and how we can work together from that perspective. The Berkman survey in general got a lot of great feedback from our presidents, and they kept asking, how can we do this at the local level? How can we do this at the local level? So excited to announce that the Berkman survey will be launched at the fraternity resource this coming fall. So all dues-paying members will have access to this, be able to take it, and then reports will be spit out. and they can kind of identify how they can work better as individuals and as a team within their chapter. However, the Brooklyn surveys is good in providing the reports, but the other piece of it is the actual presentation of it. So in addition, we are launching the Brooklyn small groups. These small groups are going to be facilitated by AKPsi staff and AKPsi volunteers that will be trained in the Brooklyn survey. So if a chapter wants to go over their survey, we can assign a volunteer or staff where we can kind of talk them through, hey, why are you this? What's your CZL? Why are you blue, red, or whatever color you are and shape you are? It allows you to talk through that and understand more about it from that perspective. So that's going to be launched at probably the second half of the semester. In addition, in the continuation of providing programming for our members, we are going to be doing virtual keynotes. These are going to be on a monthly basis with the target of 1 hour Q&A with executives and leaders in business and other professions. Again, normally if you're dues-paying members, these events will be free. In addition, like Steve mentioned, we are not doing the likelihood of us doing a in-person principal business leadership PBI is very slim. So we'll be launching an Institute of Business Leadership. Since spring 2021, we're actually targeting to do one in the fall and one in the spring. So this is going to be a virtual leadership development conference with speakers and panelists. So the idea is to bring that PBI experience to a certain extent virtually with all our members. And for this one, again, if you're dues-paying members, the registration fee for these events will be free for members. And then the last piece, as students are developing skills in various small groups or learning plans that they're doing, they're going to get, once they achieve a certain level of skills, they're going to get the principal, we're going to introduce the principal business leadership certificates. These certificates are going to be awarded to those members, and we're looking to give them an opportunity to showcase that via LinkedIn, on the resume, as discussion points to help them further their careers or in their next steps in their careers. So with all these programs, you know, the purpose of these programs is to help supplement some of the things that they're doing locally. This year is going to be hard enough for them, and as Steve said, you know, we may be from a priority list, number 3, number 4, number 5, so they don't have time to kind of plan these events or may not have the resources to plan these events. So what we hope is that for those chapters that are struggling or want to utilize the fraternity resources, they can attend these keynotes. They can do the Brooklyn survey. They can attend the Institute of Business Leaderships. All these programs are helping continue their development as a brother and as a member of this organization at the fraternity level. So we're excited about the Brotherhood Unbounded. We have a group of interns that have been working together to kind of launch this product in the next couple of days. So it was a great presentation, and some of the things the benefits of this program will then be highlighted and shared with all our student members. So look out for that information in the next week or so. All right, that's it. In closing, look, Elisa's mentioned it. The virtual chapter operations guide for this year is your #1 resource, your go-to. Everything is linked in that one document. She shows you 100 different documents, doesn't matter. The one document that matters to you is the virtual chapter operations guide. That has been a culmination of all the work that the management team and staff have done in the past couple of months. And it provides you everything that you need to do to guide your members in a virtual world. And that operations guide is a living document. So we'll get that updated weekly and get the latest information in that as well. We're all in for Brotherhood Unbounded. This is the first when talking to students and asking them, what's the value they see of AKPsi, they can share everything they can do. They can share a lot of things at the local level, but at the fraternity level, they can't really share much outside of being PBLI, their experience at PBLI or a convention. So with Brotherhood Unbounded, we are providing them resources that they could use and supplement their chapter programming for the whole entire year. The Berkman survey is our flagship product. This survey costs, I think, a couple $100 to do, and it's usually mainly for C-level execs. We're giving that to our students who pay their dues for free. So this is something they cannot get anywhere else, either on campus or with any other organizations. So Brotherhood Unbounded provides that resource, the resources and tools they can use to actually sell and recruit future potential new members. In addition, in continuation to support and keeping everyone in sync with the chapter achievement pathway, we have developed the role-specific learning plans, and which are your monthly checklists, and that's going to be rolled out for chapter advisors, section directors, and regional directors in the next couple days. Again, we have a huge group of volunteers, and we want, and you guys have different experiences and whatnot. Utilize the MyAKPsi to collaborate. Use the MyAKPsi volunteer group to collaborate with each other, share ideas, and ask questions. The management team is in that, the staff's on that, so if there are questions that are not getting answered, we will be in there to answer those questions for you. But that is going to be your central location to connect with all the volunteers for AKPsi. And now, because it's on the mobile, now that we have a mobile app, there's no excuse to chat with other volunteers at all. Another reminder, we have an open forum this Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Please register in the MyAKPsi community by 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This open forum is going to be a continuation. If we can't answer all the questions tonight, that forum can be used to answer questions or gather questions and feedback and things that you can share. And most importantly, you have the staff, the management team are here to support you all, from the chapter advisor, the CAD members, the chapter advisors, section directors, regional managers. We are here to help, So don't afraid to ask for help. There's a lot of things that are going on, a lot of information that's getting pushed through. And our purpose is to over-communicate so that we continue to keep in sync, so that we can share the same message to our student members and help them move forward as, so that we can move forward as an organization. As you can see, our focus moving forward is to continue to support our volunteers. And we've done that with the monthly checklist and the learning tracks. This town hall is just another step forward in supporting you. And then lastly, I just want to take a moment to just kind of thank each and every one of you. I know there has been, you all have put in countless hours into this organization, and that's just absolutely priceless. Thank you for that. Thank you for continuing our missions of developing principal business leaders, and thank you for just being brothers. I hope this town hall and I hope this information was helpful for you all. We are looking at doing something similar on a monthly basis, again, to keep everyone in sync. But no, as an organization, with operations plan, with the learning plans, with everything that's going on, we will get through this, I don't call it nightmare, I'll say, we'll get through this opportunity together. At the end of it, I believe that this organization will become stronger, bigger, and better. And we thank the incredible volunteers for your guidance, for your feedback, for sharing, asking us questions, and challenging us to be better for our student members. So thank you for that. That being said, what time is that? 8:52. All right, so we do have a couple questions. let's see, the recording. So there will be a recording of this that will be sent out in a follow-up email this Friday as a reminder for the open forum. David and Jill, you asked about, is there other ways we can capture attendance? Let us take that back and kind of work through that. Again, the reason we are pushing the MyAKPsi events is that it does track the attendance, but also tracks the history of that individual and attending events.
Yeah.
So we'll get clarity around that. Jackie?
Yeah, if I can jump in for those two as well. A few things. One, a chapter that doesn't want to use the MyAKPsi to create an event, I think that's a great opportunity for a volunteer to ask the questions, why wouldn't they want to use the MyAKPsi event portal for that, for the tracking systems? Like, is there something that's getting in their way? Is there something that maybe they don't know how to utilize it? Is there another program that the school uses? But before just saying, hey, we're not going to utilize this, or we found a different way, I would ask the question why, or maybe they don't understand the benefits of using the MyAKPsi events feature. As far as attendance, just like Thomas said, it is a way for us to track it and for their history to be tracked this way. This has also been something that our students for various years have been asking for, and it's here for them to utilize. It gets to the community. Again, it doesn't have to be for every single chapter meeting. It's just for the events that they're hosting, that they're doing. It's also a great way to start getting them used to those business practices. Like, I know, like, even me for my job, every time I have to attend a training or an event for my work, I do have to register for it as well, because how they track the attendance for it as well. So I think it's a great learning opportunity for our brothers in general to, one, this is how you set up events. This is how to utilize these systems on the back end, how to track it. And then as well, just getting them used to how it's going to be, because I know at work, I get emails, I get different events that come my way, and how I register and start participating in them. Then when it comes to the next level, once we get ready for more, is how do we start separating events maybe by sections or by regions as well? And this will already allow them to, and getting them familiarized with our system, them utilizing it at their chapter level before expanding into larger levels as well. Like Thomas said, we'll get back with more specifics, but I would always start with the question why, to see what it is that we can do to help them, and then maybe have those one-off conversations with our resource coordinator than just a blanket statement like, hey, we're able to do it this way. So I know I was a little long-winded with that answer, but I hope that helped.
All right. So there's another question about the chapter events. So that should be live tomorrow, Jason. Just kidding. It'll be live pretty soon, so they can create the events, like Jason said, at their own pace. Questions about the support system of the RDs. So yes, there are some vacant RD positions. The fraternity as a whole is doing an organization analysis to kind of see how does the management team, how does the volunteers, how does the staff, how does the boards all work together to be better efficient and support our members more efficiently and agile as an organization. So that is getting looked at. We're supposed to get a report to go over at the next board meeting, which is going to happen in October. But in regards to the support system, if your region is vacant with RDs, your next kind of support will be your VPs. That is why they have them in place to fill in those gaps where there is needed. And if there's no VPs, that's where Jackie comes in. Jackie and I can come in and help and support. So, I mean, we've built many layers to kind of show support all the way to our student members. So just like some chapters don't have chapter advisors, right, which are an integral part of working with our students. But that's why we have SDs that step in. If there's no SDs, we have RDs step in. If there's no RDs that step in, we have VPs. So we have those kind of layers and chain of command to help support the organization. Then you also have the awesome chapter education resource coordinators with Coral. Amber to help you. So as a way to get the information and the support that's needed from that perspective. That being said, Steve, do you have anything else you want to add before we close out?
The only other thing is that in regards to events or things like that, we didn't really talk about this because it's sort of down the road, but the idea is that within the next, we're hoping the next 6 months as part of the Brotherhood Unbounded offerings is that we'll start to create certificates I'm getting a little bit ahead of over my skis here, so I'm going to have to reserve the right to be wrong sometimes if you speak a little bit prematurely. But the education team with a task force from the MT, they've been creating our leadership development methodology. Okay, what does that mean? It means that we have a 6 core leadership skills that the methodology is based off of. And so the idea is that students, as they attend different events or participate in different activities, whether it's a fraternity-wide event or even a chapter level event, that whatever the focus of that event is, it's likely that they'll be building into they'll be learning more about one of those, or at least one of those core 6 skills. So the idea is if we can kind of keep track of their participation in those activities and events, then what we'll do as an organization is start to award certificates for those specific skills that students can then start to achieve as they kind of go down their leadership path within the organization. So it may seem right now like an administrative change to try to get people to sign up for these events and track all that. And again, it is new, so I understand that. But in the long run, the idea is that we'll be able to kind of utilize fraternity-wide events, chapter events that may involve like a couple of chapters, that if they get together and do it, that we can kind of have a record of this. And then by virtue of that, we'll be able to provide the student with an update on their progress in building these different 6 core skills. So that's kind of the long term. And when I say long term, in this world, we're talking about within a year, having that set up. So the context around the events thing is a little broader. I realized tonight, for the sake of brevity, we were trying to focus on specifically the attendance piece, but the long term issue is being able to help them track their leadership development journey in the organization. Jackie, you said you may have been long-winded. I think I can beat you on being long-winded every time, maybe. At least that's what they tell me. Thomas, again, I just want to thank everybody sincerely, staff as well, and for everybody that's a volunteer here. I do realize that we're all under our own personal stress, family, people we care about that we worry about. And I just really appreciate you giving some extra effort and time for this organization. It means a lot, particularly under the circumstances. So thank you again. Again, Thomas, Heather, Elisa, and Jackie, again, thank you for getting this thing set up. Really great. Appreciate it very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and we are done. See you on Saturday.